Okay, welcome to the Bitcoin Bros podcast, featuring two Bitcoin brothers who are going to chat Bitcoin, life, and everything in between. I'm the big bro Gaz, and I know everything.
I'm little bro Tom, who doesn't know everything. But what I do know is this is not financial advice. However, buy Bitcoin or have fun staying poor. Welcome to the show. So it's pod number 16 today, Gaz. It's been we had a bit of a holiday, haven't we? We put in some annual leave requests over Christmas, and then I think some life problems hit us, didn't they? To be fair, and we took a sabbatical. We've had 2 months out, and yeah, it's good to be back, I think.
Yeah, there's a bit too many fixtures over Christmas, so we just needed a bit of a winter break. So
that's it. It's exactly right.
We're back, raring to go. A little bit later than normal winter break would be, end of Feb, but it's been worth. I think hopefully it'll be worth the wait, because holy shit, a lot's happened in the last 2 months, whether it be personal, Bitcoin, world related, and we've got one hell of an agenda sat on here. Like normally we have, I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 bullet points, but quite a lot of them are just small. Oh, there's this little thing happened. We have 4 things on this list right here, which, wow, they're almost like once in a generation type points, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I just want to have one shout out. Can you just move yourself slightly to the right?
Move me to the right. Oh,
yeah.
Move you to
There we go. Anyone watching this on video, you can see the mini block clock behind Gaz. And the beauty of this is, since he's turned it on the 25th of December 2021, it's gone down. It's like a broken clock.
Well,
yeah, we laugh about it.
It's a broken clock that only goes down. Yeah.
The beauty about it going down all of a sudden is it's payday tonight, so it means it's DCA tomorrow. So I might actually have to hold the DCA off for a couple more days, I think. But then again, I do go against DCA, never play the game, so I may just have to stick to my
exactly. You know what will happen if you do that? The price will bounce back
boom.
to freaking 50k in 2 days, and then you'll buy. Then it'll go back down to 37. Yeah. Played myself again.
Yeah, I'm bloody keep losing.
Yeah, no, it's a good Christmas present from you, because I've always wanted a block clock. I've always seen them in the background of so many people that do podcasts. It's such a good piece, I think, of Bitcoin memorabilia. You can just track the price. Sometimes you don't want to track the price. It's not been much fun having that plugged in for 2 months. That there.
I think though, once you get to the point of being a Bitcoiner, tracking the price is funny and it's fun. Whereas if you are new to this game, I 100% recommend you do not spend the cash on that, especially spending the cash on FedEx to bloody get it across the border. Because it's an American chap that builds these and he sends them over. But yeah, fair play, they are quality. But if you are somebody that's lumped in massive at the peak, then you'll be probably putting that in the fish tank.
Yeah, but that's my favorite topic of why it was so expensive, because that's import tax. So they shove an extra 20% on it just because they can.
Yeah. It ties straight back in, doesn't it? So there's just one thing before we get touching onto the agenda. We've discussed numerous times about how to DCA easily via Revolut, and saving your spare change in a vault, and we've also discussed about how you can only take a certain amount out a month. And I started withdrawing mine just this month just gone, since I've had my new setup with my ledger and all that. And interestingly, I'm not going to tell you the numbers, but if you're clever, the number that I got out this month equals 21. And I know it tickled you guys.
That's going to be way too cryptic for anyone to get. I wouldn't have even got that if I didn't know what the answer is. It's because it's in binary. Let's just tell them it's in binary. It's 10101. Yeah, it's 10101. And really, like, you screenshotted that, didn't you? You set up an extra wallet. You sent a little bit of Bitcoin out from your Revolut, and it says 10101 in it. And you were like, oh, look, this computer code. I just went, I wonder what that is in binary. So I Googled it. It says 21, which even that link might be too much for some of our listeners, but there's 21 million Bitcoin, just in case anyone knows. That's why 21's.
Don't turn off.
Not like the legal age of consent for drinking in America. It's 21 million Bitcoin. So yeah, very spooky number that you ended up, because it's obviously a random amount, isn't it? Revolut have a cap on how much you can send out per day and per month, and so you just maxed out the cap one day, sent it, and that's the exact amount that landed, which just almost transcribed itself as 21. You go, that wallet is either needs to just be left alone, or it's like a special wallet. It's just a good omen to start with 21 in binary sat in there. It's like,
yeah, it's the funniest thing about it is as well, when I was doing all the transactions across into the wallet, and I kept the Revolut money separate to our main sort of hodl, and I called the wallet the jet skis fund. So it is quite fitting, I think. So hopefully in the future that will be buying our jet skis.
yeah. You're gonna get so many people switching off. We're literally recording this on World War III day, and we're talking about jet skis.
That's true, actually. Yeah, okay.
People dying in the world, Tom. People dying.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Right. Okay, no more jet skis. Right. So to the agenda. So we started off with, oh yes. So yes, I'm still here. I'm not jobless.
You're not unemployed somehow, yeah. Because
no. So I actually think, if you think personal life, I won't go into the details, but there was 3 major things that happened in my personal life, and losing the job was the 4th. So I think I was saved by that 3rd one popping in last minute. Things happen in 3s, don't they?
I don't even know what all these. Oh, right, yeah, I see. Like actually, like people's illnesses and stuff.
Yeah.
And then so the one that we want to talk about essentially is your job, isn't it? I think we did discuss it on here.
I think so, yeah. We've definitely discussed it on this, and the 4Bs, we had quite a long session on that, didn't we? Like pod 33, I think it was, wasn't it, for you? And it was all about the mandation of the vaccinations, and we've discussed about how freedoms and stuff like that's been very much sidelined, and the Great Reset and so on. I remember it was a very, very strange sort of, almost no real logic to it regarding making NHS staff mandated in this vaccination. And initially there was I think it was like 15 to 17% of the staff were unvaccinated, but very quickly that once the threat came out that it was from March 31st you would be made, or you'd be sacked basically if you hadn't had it, a lot of people did sort of cave and go ahead with it. And it went down to 6%, and that was the number that was going into the week of the February the 3rd, where if you hadn't have had it, you would be handed your notice. And the government did a U-turn, very interestingly, and it didn't really make sense. And then literally the most balmy thing about this whole thing is, 1, doing a U-turn, that's very weak. 2, look what we've just done now. Today, you no longer have to self-isolate even if you have COVID. And where are we? We're the 24th of February, guys. Like, this is literally 23 weeks today was when I was getting my notice. And 3 weeks on, you don't even have to self-isolate to go into hospital if you've got COVID. Like, let's just think about that. So you, as a person that's going in for a blood test, can walk into those doors, you can mix with all the vulnerable, so-called, the vulnerable people who will be on chemo and stuff like that. So it's just for me, it's ridiculous U-turn. That's like, it's not even a U-turn, that's like a complete reversal of any thing. And I just think it's going to be quite topical on this pod regarding the government and world decision leaders, but that's just balmy for me. And even you look around Australia, Canada, they're all slightly loosening up their rules now anyway. Admittedly, they're still stupidly high rules, but they are loosening a little bit. And I saw this thing today on Twitter, and there was basically someone ran onto a football pitch with a big sign. You can't see what the sign says. It's obviously a political sign. 4 people, like stewards or police, all dressed in black. They run on and they pin him down, as they do. But one of them with a truncheon was like hammering it into his head. Anyway, a group of I think it was 3 or 4 people run on the pitch to get the lad up from the floor because he's getting battered. They get him up, and then with that, the load more of the crowd come in. And before you know it, the 4 run away, and you actually see 2 of them down, and people are pounding them. I reckon they could well have died. It was pretty brutal. I'm not condoning that, by the way, but it just sort of showed 1 or 2 people, one doing something, and then getting hammered, and then when everyone started joining up together and moving, everything stopped, and the roles reversed. And it's almost like, when people go mental and it becomes like an unruly world. We don't want it to go that far, but that is the danger of this thing. Where we were heading is that, and the beauty of what happened, there was enough people in positions of quite senior positions like myself in the NHS that made people stop, and they started thinking about it. And this is how society needs to work a little bit without doing ridiculous protests and looting the world. That's not what we're saying. It's to stand strong with your principles if they're correct and if you believe in them. And unfortunately, I didn't have the disruption in my life that I thought I was going to have, because it would have been quite annoying. But ironically, NHS Wales were like, excuse me, we're not mandating it. Come and work for us. So,
yeah, it just exposed the whole sham that is this. Like, none of the rules made sense, even from the very beginning. I've been banging the drum for 2 years now, saying all the data suggests that this is a flu. And we've had 2 years of it now. The numbers go up every winter, they go down every summer. And now, now you're allowed to have COVID and walk into a hospital. Because guess what? People used to walk into hospitals with the flu all the time, because you just can't stop it. People always have various flus. And if you do seriously keep refusing to care for people that happen to have the flu at the time that they also have a serious ailment. And obviously we saw that in our own family. We had someone being treated for terminal cancer care, and they had that delayed a week because they had a false positive on a COVID test. So that is when you know you're in full clown world, where you've got someone that it needs urgent care and they're going, oh, but you have the flu right now, we can't see you. So I've been shouting it from the rooftops for 2 years, going, this is killing people. These mandates are killing people. These rules are killing people. And by denying them care from hospitals, it's destroying like kids' lives by making them have 2 years of their childhood missed. They're being scared just to talk to their friends, they're having to wear masks in schools. The psychological and just fear-mongering damage that's being happened, and the amount of anxiety and depression and just stress that I think people are going to go through over the next couple of decades is going to be immeasurable. And that's going to be the long-term impacts of what the governments have done to us in their overreaction to a flu virus, which they just use to profit and bring in new laws to regulate and tax us. So yeah, it was great that, because there's not many of them. This is always the thing that I always say about these governments and the police that were enforcing these rules. There's not very many of them, and there's far more of us. And when we stand up against them, we can win. They are few, we are many. And we saw that in Canada with the truckers and their protest. There wasn't very many of them, but they could grind a whole country to a halt, and they demanded their attention. It seems like they're getting punished heavily in Canada. They've had their bank accounts frozen. Even anyone that donated to the truckers are having their bank accounts frozen. But a more of a success story is yourself and the other 70 to 80,000 people in NHS that refused to bend the knee and get vaccinated against a flu virus, which they've likely already had and got natural immunity, to take an experimental vaccine that you had no fucking clue what it was going to do to you. And the only reason you were going to do it was through government coercion and pressure. And they were telling you, and obviously right up to about a week before they removed the mandate, that this was for health reasons, this is to protect patients, to protect you, to protect your colleagues. And a week later, they completely remove it. So did the science change in the course of a week? No. What changed is the pressure they put on people like you and the other 70 to 80,000 people didn't work. And if they had carried through with that, the NHS would have crumbled with 10% of the staff walking out and going to get employed elsewhere, because you were all very employable. They thought you were a load of plebs, didn't they? They thought the only people that, oh, you're not getting vaccinated. Oh, I bet you think the earth is flat and 5G gives you cancer. No, guess what? I don't believe any of those things, but I'm hesitant about getting a vaccination that I don't really need. So I think I'm going to give that one a miss. I'm good. I'm going to make my own health decision here. And they were like, how dare you? And but because you stood strong, I did not think it was going to work, because in America, they carried through with it anyway and decimated and had to bring a load of military medical staff into their health service. So I thought that was what was going to have to happen here, because obviously with 70,000 people walking out over the course of, well, pretty much the same day, they were had to have brought in the military. And I think they realized, holy shit, like these aren't porters and admin staff and low level junior nurses. These are senior people. You can't just bring in the military to fill these holes. They're not just moving beds about, these people. These are specialist people that, yeah, the NHS will crumble. And at a time when waiting lists are all-time high because they haven't got through and they've denied care to millions of people over the last 2 years. So waiting lists were all-time highs. So just as that, you then want to get rid of 10% of your best people. It made absolutely no sense. So, well done for standing by it, because there's a lot of people that would say they would do what you did, but they wouldn't. There's just about everyone I know had some type of inconvenience put into their life. And every single person caved at the first sign of an inconvenience, whether it be, oh, I can't go on holiday, can't watch the football, I might need to do it for work, I might want to go to this gig. They all caved and just went and got vaccinated because they just wanted the government to leave them alone and to have the vax pass. But you actually had your livelihood threatened and you stood strong right the way up. Like you were playing chicken with the government there, and you were driving right towards them. And you're like, I'm not fucking stopping. I'm going to hit you head on. It's going to hurt me. I know it will, but it's going to hurt you as well. And right at the last minute, they swerved into the ditch. And like, fair play, you nailed it. And yeah, you made a huge difference to maybe even to the world, because I think the continuation of them caving continued. I think if they'd have pushed that one out to the NHS and it worked, they'd have carried on. It would have gone into
that was my worry.
Into restaurants. It would have kept going, but you stopped it. You held the line, and well done for that. It's an amazing achievement to have done it.
That's cool, yeah. Because just to touch on a few things that happened whilst the mandate came out, I think it was the second week of January that it was going to come out, and it was passed. So then, literally, it was funny that you just mentioned about waiting lists, because from like December time, we were told explicitly from NHS England and the government that not one person pre the COVID outbreak, so back into February 19, can wait more than 2 years for any diagnostic test or treatment. So basically it's called the 104-week wait. So I'd put a load of things in place to allow quick referrals in, streamlined, putting clinics and stuff like that in. And then as soon as the mandate came on, I think I don't know if I'm making this up, but like the 7th or 8th of January, everything stopped by that, because that was no longer important. It was all about, right, you have to speak to all your staff, you have to get this data cleaned up. Actually, no, that came out before Christmas, actually, because it was Christmas Eve, it was dropped on us. That was it. Happy Christmas. And basically my days were consumed. So I had a minimum of about an hour a day spent with a senior member of the hospital discussing the system, the situation, telling me how I was throwing my career away, how I can't look after my family, and there was no other health benefits, because I knew that I had a very solid argument, and they even said to me, "You're the first person that's made me actually almost agree with you." And because you're at polar opposites, remember, of these discussions, like you're either pro it or you hate it. Like there's no real middle ground about, I don't really mind. You're quite solid. Why aren't you having it? You've obviously got reasons why you're having it. Oh well, it's safe, isn't it? It's what you blurb off what the BBC say. So that was difficult. And it was getting to the point where obviously it's very stressful. Like, and I'm in a fortunate position that I've got options if I did lose my livelihood, but there's a lot of people that wouldn't. Which, so holding your line, there's two ways of looking at that. Yeah, there's a lot of people that felt solid, and I had a number of them that I knew about in the hospitals, but there was some that really didn't hate it, but they couldn't pay their mortgage. Like, so they ended up doing it. I feel for those guys. And one of my biggest concerns was pushing through with it, then it coming in a mandate, losing the job, and then something else happening. So like to go to the shops now, like in Germany, you have to have it, and then being almost forced into it eventually anyway. I was thinking, it's a bit annoying, isn't it, if you end up having it 6 months later? But the thing I could never get my head around was, if I'm joining the game almost a year later than when the jobs first started, why on earth would you start at the beginning? Because we know that the variants have moved on, and no one had the answer. They were like, oh yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Surely you would start with the current one. But yeah, I think it's a good story out, and like you say, obviously individually I haven't changed the world, but it's one of those cumulative effects, isn't it? I empowered some people, and it was a voice. And I've told you, you've seen videos of some of the calls I had to have with some very senior people that we got recorded, and you heard the discussions. And it was about doing that, putting the voice into the exec team so they have a little, at least somebody sensible. Because I think the assumption was it was always going to be, Dougie down in the Porters or whatever it was, that, and like you said, you can bring military in to cover that, but you can't in certain positions. So yeah, buzzing, but I'll tell you, it was hard work.
Yeah,
It
I
was
think you're
very lot
pretty
of pressure.
much our generation's Martin Luther King.
I had a dream.
I had a dream not to be vaccinated.
Oh yeah, out of interest for the vaccination. So I was listening to Soccer Sport, Sky Sports, whatever it is, the results last night, and the Sunderland game was cancelled by about 15 minutes because of another person who went down in the stands. And then you literally, if you listen to Gillette Soccer Saturday and on the Saturdays or whatever, or midweeks, there's generally one or two fans having a medical emergency, and that's stopping the game for 10, 15, 20 minutes. You never used to hear of that in the past. So, you can
Blood
make of
clots,
that
heart
what you want.
conditions, strokes happening all over the place. We tried to warn
Yeah.
people. There's loads of issues at the moment. Yeah, there's been so many deaths and serious illnesses related to it all. But look, the problem is most people have gone and got vaccinated. So I hope it's fine. But the data right now does not look good. And yeah, but I hope the data just changes and hopefully it's something else.
I think,
and,
we've heard.
Otherwise,
we've
there's
heard,
billions of people that are going to have a heart condition at some point, and that's going to be, yeah. Well, it's talk about war crimes.
Yeah, it's a small percentage of people that are going to have any of the issues, but that was the point when you didn't even want to be and have a chance of being one of those people. That was the ultimate thing, wasn't it? But the things about inconveniences, like, because there was always ways around it. Like a negative LFT was a way you could get to, like, I go to watch Villa and stuff by just having a thing from the government saying that I was negative. Like, they changed. Like, I went to Villa the other week and there was no COVID precautions in now. So if you had changed your mind because of going to watch Villa or something, you'd be fuming, wouldn't you?
It was all scare tactics. They didn't actually follow through on just about anything. All the scare tactics all kind of went away. The only ones they really kept to a certain degree was for travel. But even then, I know people that had fake fact passes and didn't even get asked this to get seen. So a lot of it was just fake. And this is the whole what we talk about when you say just stand up and say no and have conviction in saying no. Because provided enough people do, then there's nothing they can do. And actually enforcing a lot of the made up clown world rules that they did did not have the manpower to enforce any of this. So if you just didn't comply, you could just walk straight through it, especially if loads of people didn't comply. And and that's what happened. And hopefully we're seeing the other side of this, because we're rotating into the next disaster to try and cover up the COVID mess. But yeah, it depends what you want to do. Do you want to go into that one, or do you want to talk about something more personal before we go into World War III?
Let's have a personal one. Let's go there.
Most people are switched off now anyway, because we've triggered nearly everyone. Because
but I think a lot of people will be seeing the other side. I think it's because it's in retrospect. If we'd done this 3 weeks ago, I think everyone would have turned off. But I think if you're listening to this and you're triggered, when you went out to the shops today, did you wear a mask? If the answer is yes, turn off.
Yeah, I feel sorry. The people that I still seeing are wearing a mask, I know they've made that mask their personality, and they've fallen out with so many friends and family about it that, oh, just wear a mask. It's easy. It's just, why wouldn't you? It's such an easy thing to do. It's like, it doesn't do anything. It's just the flu. Stop it. We're human beings. And but the people that I see wearing it, I'm like, that's been your identity for 2 years, and you can't take that off now. Because if you bump into any of your mates on Facebook, then they go, why ain't you wearing a mask in Tesco? And you're gonna have to, at some point, they're gonna have to fucking take it off. I'm guessing it'll be when it warms up, because the upside of it keeps your face warm. So I'm actually quite for masks in the winter. I quite like them, but not for anything health related. It's just keeps your face warm. But yeah, let's move on to buying a house.
Yeah, I like it. So I think the important thing I want to talk about and bring this in was we've just spoke about for the last 15 episodes about buying, holding, sitting on it, waiting for it to get to the point of adoption and get it to a point where you're not just chucking it in for a car. So yeah, you've had a bit of a change of personal circumstance, which has forced your hand a little bit to move your plans a couple of years earlier, probably, I'd say. And you're sat probably with you don't want to get your bank account frozen, do you?
And if I had my bank account frozen right now, I would be the saddest I think I've ever been. That would be very, very sad. But yeah, I think once family life catches up with you, so obviously I've met someone and then there's a baby along the way. So once you hit those types of things, you go, all right, my standard of living has pretty much stayed the same since I was 25. And probably wouldn't be much of a surprise that I'm not 25 anymore. I'm significantly older. So in the next 2 years, I wanted to do something anyway. That was just an age thing. It's just that I can't wait around forever. I need to take some profit and not live as pretty much just a slightly rich student. I actually start needing to live an actual life that I actually want to live. And yeah, and also like the lockdown stuff also did affect me. Probably, obviously, I managed to get to Sweden for one of the years, but then I came back and pretty much had to spend nearly a year locked in a flat, give or take, which was not fun. And I fully expected at the time anyway, for these lockdowns to continue coming. I think they will come back in coming years, whether it be for war, for more pandemics, for climate change. I think they will continue to lock us down. So yeah, so I wanted to buy a property. I wanted to have some land, and I wanted to be able to go, you know what, if they lock us down again, I can bring some friends and family into the home. And then yeah, good luck, lock us down as long as you fucking want. I've got a mini little centre parks on my land, so I can just enjoy myself and ride it out. It'll be a lot easier to ride that out in somewhere like that than it is in a 1-bed flat in the middle of the city as well, which
yeah,
cities are the first places to get burnt down in.
Turn around, look at the price.
39k.
Yeah, I just went up 2k.
That was one hell of a 5 minutes. Because it refreshes every 5 minutes. So yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you.
I think also I am. But the whole reason why we even brought this up, it isn't just the flex that I'm buying a house and the sad news that I'm buying sold some Bitcoin. Because I fully obviously intend on buying a lot of that back once I can get the house, then mortgage or get a mortgage or a loan against the house, and I can buy some Bitcoin back, which might end up working out well because I sold it about a month ago when the price was about 10k higher than that. So at the moment, if I manage to get the house, get the loan, I fully intend on buying my Bitcoin back. So I might well be able to get a lot of my Bitcoin back for a cheaper price, which would be beautiful. The reason we got as a topic is whilst I was trying to buy this house, it literally only got verified today actually, it's
been done.
Good. Yeah, it's literally, I've got the okay today, but my solicitor at one point refused to even work with me because my source of funds came from Bitcoin. Straight away, they were going, we don't accept that as a source of funds, which I find hilarious. I'm not trying to pay in Bitcoin. I've sold the Bitcoin into your shitty pounds and I have the pounds. You just need to fucking, I'm not even giving them to the solicitor. They're not yours. You just need to hold them for like a minute, send them to another solicitor who then sends them to the owner of the house. But under law and anti-money laundering regulation, my solicitor has to prove that I'm not some drug lord, some kind of mass criminal terrorist who has got these funds from illicit means. So yeah, so they put me through the ringer and went, okay, fine, we will work with you, but we want to know everything about this Bitcoin and how you got it, when you bought it, when you sold it. And even when I got to that and went, okay, but you bought this with money, where did that come from? So I pretty much had to spend 8 hours of my life digging through various financial records. Fortunately, I'm quite organized with that stuff, so I could find it all, justifying pretty much back 15 years on my investment journey, which was actually quite a nice little journey to do, to be fair, because that really reminded me. I had to
Is that
dig
paper
out.
or was it electronic?
Some of it was paper and most of it was electronic. Wow. But it was nice to go back to some of my old pay slips where I was getting paid pretty much minimum wage, still carving money off into shares, tracking it through. Those shares went up, sold it, paid a bit of tax on it, kept that money, put it into different shares, that went up. And eventually it gets to a point where that amount of money is getting bigger and bigger. That eventually goes into Bitcoin. And then, a little piece comes out. And yeah, it's just tracking it through. I'm like, oh, it's quite a nice little historic journey for me to have gone through just to see where I came from. But yeah, and I had to document all that, send it to the solicitor. And yeah, and they've approved it today. But it was hilarious because when I first started engaging with them, they saw me as a high net worth individual. They were treating me like a king. They're really pleased to be working with me, super like friendly on phone calls, emails, messages. And then the second they heard that my proof of funds came from Bitcoin sales, they just turned and started treating me like a criminal. And
Wow.
but that's the world I think we live in at the moment, where the FUD and the mainstream kind of view of Bitcoin is you're probably a criminal if you have some of that, especially a large quantity. And and that's what I had to go through. And essentially it was you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So now I've proven myself innocent. Something started being friendly again, but that was after 2 weeks of them treating me like dirt.
Do you think if you couldn't have proven that you'd done the taxable events, they would refuse to touch you still? Did you have to prove tax to them, or was it just, you mentioned tax, you just saw some tax went out? Did you have to show that, or did you have to show you you made this money in a income stream, and then you bought Bitcoin at X price and you've sold it at X price?
They did ask for my tax returns for a number of years. I told them to go play in traffic. And no, you're not getting that. But what I ended up doing is some of my bank statements that had some of my trades of money going in and out in them, they just happened to have a payment to HMRC and referenced it like capital gains tax. So because it was in the bank statement I was giving them anyway, I just went, look, there it is. Because I know why they're asking, right? This is what I think we probably discussed this before around when we've just been discussing tax. Straight away, when they saw that I was essentially a Bitcoiner, they didn't think I was a Bitcoiner like who I am. They don't think people like me exist. It's a little bit like probably you not being vaccinated. Everyone assumes a character and a stereotype of that type of person. So the second they thought I was a Bitcoiner, they went, oh, this is some guy that trades Dogecoin, dink doink, and rides the pumps and dumps, but has no clue that each time he trades these, that's a taxable event. So he might have a lot of money now, but who knows how much he's made and lost and not paid taxes over the years. So maybe all this money that I'm like paying for a house now, that could well be tax and that I owe. So it's a problem that's going to come up later down the stream. And I think they see it as their responsibility to go, is this money actually yours, or was half of it the tax man's?
I think that's just bloody bullshit, because like if you buy if we like scrape it all back to the foundations here, so you've got an asset and you're going to transfer the asset into, obviously, from Bitcoin into sterling, and then from sterling to a house. So I'm not being funny, if HMRC come knocking in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it's very highly unlikely, isn't it, before the funds get transferred? And if they do come knocking after you've transferred all your money across, whose problem is it?
It's
Your
mine.
problem.
And guess what? HMRC will take my house.
Exactly. Because it's still the same thing. It's just changed form of monetary value, hasn't it? It's just an asset. So that's just balmy, isn't it? The tax thing is just completely up to you. It's your fault. You're going to prison. You're paying it back. The solicitor's just an intermediate. You've got funds. You've got proof of worth. Crack on with your day, guys. Why are they being busybodies? That's where you're right with the stereotyping. They're just thinking you're some 21-year-old kid who's just made a load of money on dink doing.
Yeah,
Probably
I think
robbed his granny to pay for it.
Yeah, I also think some of it's jealousy and ego, because obviously I'm dealing with smart people here that are solicitors, and I looked some of them up, and they're these 40, 50-year-old men and women, work for lawyers, firms and stuff. And I think when they actually just went, oh, right, how did you make your money, on their little form, it pretty much, there's only 2 boxes really. It was 3 boxes. One says, where did you get your money from? 3 check boxes. One is inheritance, so you've inherited a house. And number 2 is you've sold a previous house. And number 3 is just other. Mm-hmm. So obviously I'm in the other category. And obviously they know my date of birth, they know everything, because I've had to do ID checks through them. And so when they just go, look, where did you get this money from? I just went, well, I earned it, then invested it, and I did well, and now I'm buying a house. They just go, no, it's impossible that anyone could have done that, because I'm super smart as Mr. Solicitor, and I haven't been able to do that, and I'm older than this guy. So he must have cheated somehow. There must be some type of criminal activity. So I do think some of the motivation was jealousy. And they're almost going, we're going to keep going at this guy to just prove that you can't do this. This well,
definitely we've discussed jealousy before, haven't we? And there's a lot of people in our lives that have used you as a case study for, you're doing it, you're lucky. I'm not doing it because Gaz has got more. And eventually they turn the corner and go, okay, yeah, right, I'm 5 years later, but I'm going to get on the train now. And they'll be less rich, but they will be rich in the future. And I think this is a prime example in the real world, isn't it? It's layer 2, isn't it? Where it's gone into commercial instead of just being family and friends and acquaintances. So
all that
yeah.
all that saltiness, like, it still exists, right? Like, they've still sat there. They think they're intelligent. They probably think they're investors. They've seen Bitcoin and they've dismissed it. They've dismissed it for 13 years, and they've been wrong for every fucking year that they've ignored it for. So now when they see someone rocking up who isn't like them, who didn't miss it, who did invest in it, and also got the internet before people got the internet, now got Bitcoin before they understood Bitcoin, they're just salty that they're late, and they just want to put blockers in place. But unfortunately, usually I would just tell these people to, like, have fun staying poor and move on. And I did give them a rocket, and I ended up talking to the boss of the law firm in the end, because the people I was talking to they got drowned. Like, they were out of their depth quickly with some of the things that I was saying to them, because you can't be prejudiced against people. You do have to treat people correctly. You can't refuse them business based on zero evidence. So you need to actually just go, what do you need from me? And I will provide it, providing this matches the law. And very quickly, I know my email got forwarded around that law firm. And in the end, one of the heavy hitters came in and removed all the emotion, was much more professional. I went, okay, now let's do business. You need more information. You think I'm high risk. I understand that. Here's the info. And it all got done, cleared off. But the stupid little admin people below them caused me some shit. But hopefully one of them got fired. So he will be having fun staying poor now.
Oh dear. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Emotion is especially with someone like yourself that was dealt in very senior positions in the business, dealing with these sort of people all the time. You can smell a weak rat easily, can't you? And yeah, and they probably gave you a lot of ammunition from what they were saying to you. And the silly thing is, everything these days is done via email, isn't it? So you just their trails there. Someone eventually gets forwarded in, and yeah, they're in trouble.
Yeah. And they had no clue as well that obviously my background is in anti-money laundering and know your customer identity checks. I literally spent my entire career doing that. And then they started quoting the regulation to me. I'm like, oh, you're making this too easy now. You're not an expert in this, but I actually am. I know exactly what you need, and you are going well overboard. You do not need this. The regulation does not say that. And they all just scurried away into their little holes and just went, all right, sorry, but we just need this little bit extra here. I'm like, okay, you can have that little bit, but stop pissing on my head and telling me it's raining. I ain't a mug.
Oh, beautiful. So I think that moves us nicely on to the recent crumble of the price, which I know we've said numerous times, don't get fixated on it. Yeah, it's quite cool, isn't it? It's 4 fat ladies, 3 and 4 fat ladies.
Very nearly 5 fat ladies.
Oh, it is actually, isn't it?
Nearly 6 if you include the dollars.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, and I think obviously we've seen it go down quite a lot, and it's been interesting it going down, because I always try and marry up with what's going on in the world to warrant this. Like, obviously we've got inflation going up, we've got like the world in disarray, and the price goes down. Like, I would have thought, especially with countries jumping on board now, and we see El Salvador doing quite well with it. MicroStrategy still buying in. Obviously, there's people selling because they're in your positions. But then the price has just consistently gone down. And yeah, it's a bit of an interesting to why. But I think the way I'm looking at it now is, now for me in a personal situation, now I don't need to act on what's going on. I can continue as. I actually enjoying it going down, because it's just stack it now, because at some point that dollar sign's going to moved across another one, and you'll be getting pennies for what you're buying.
At the moment, we're just too zoomed in. Like, literally, when you go back 2 months, we were pretty much nearly 70k. Now we're 38 according to the block clock at the moment. So we're pretty much half. Let's just say we've pretty much gone down 50%. And but yeah, it's all happened in the space of 2 months. It's weird. It always happens around Christmas. It happened 2017 Christmas, that was the top.
Dead.
It seems to, literally exactly 4 years later, right in line, it did it again. So now the real question is now really, what's going to happen for the next couple of years? Who knows? If we match what happened in 2017, that actually means we've got another 2 years of pain, whereas a slow bleed all the way back down to maybe about 15 to 20K.
Yeah,
maybe 10, who knows. And then we crack on from there and we go to all-time highs. And who knows, like, world events are starting to take over, aren't they, right now? Because the people that are selling are the people that are predicting these world events, and they know a lot. So there's a lot of the hardcore Bitcoiners like us that will hold on to their Bitcoin no matter what. Obviously, I've sold some to get property. I want to get it back. I have no intention of selling the stack that I have right now. I think the price could well go down significantly from here. Does not bother me. I do not want to trade that. I do not think I would not back that prediction with any of my own money. So no one listens to it. You shouldn't. But yeah, it's all, we're just zoomed in to a tiny little bit on the chart, and it's a little 2-month period between December and now, and it's a 50% dip. So everyone's a bit upset. There's a lot of people that bought in November, December at higher prices than this. And and the pain is real. Right? There's a lot of people that were making life-changing money. And when you get to life-changing money and it goes down by 50%, you lose life-changing money. So it hurts. But yeah, it's just, as we always say in Bitcoin, it's just stay humble, stack sats. We're here for, have a low time preference, and think 5 to 10 years ahead, and you're going to be very happy. Just don't zoom into the chart too much, because the macro level of what the view of the world is for Bitcoin, we're seeing governments freezing bank accounts.
I know.
We're seeing obviously wars kicking off right now. We're going to see people fleeing countries, fleeing their government. And if you have to do that, the only money you will be able to take with you is your Bitcoin.
Well, this is why I'm surprised it's going down, because I think I know admittedly this is very early doors, but there was the fact of them freezing bank accounts of poor Garanis that are sending some tenner to the lorry drivers or the truckers, and they were getting their assets frozen. And that is scary, isn't it? It's really scary. And like, that is ultimate control.
Well, yeah, it takes a while for those people that have had their bank accounts frozen and all the other normies to realize how to get into Bitcoin. Because the first thing they end up doing is going, oh, Bitcoin's a scam. Then they go down the shitcoin route. They don't take custody. So this stuff takes a year or two to actually materialize in actual real money being converted into Bitcoin, because people take a while to, once they realize that their bank and their government are not their friends and they will treat them like a criminal the second they step out of line. Even then, they start to search for answers, and it takes them ages to find Bitcoin. And it takes them even longer to actually put a sizable amount of their wealth into Bitcoin, learn how to take self-custody of it, because you have to educate yourself. But the reason why the dips are is just because there's a lot of people that still trade Bitcoin. There's a lot of institutional investors that are only in Bitcoin for the gains. They don't take custody. They basically trade paper Bitcoin on the stock market. So every single time a bit of world news comes out where maybe Russia's going to ban it, maybe China's going to ban it, maybe America's going to ban Bitcoin. Every time these things happen, they get scared and they dump a load of all their assets. So their assets will be over Bitcoin, stocks, bonds, pension funds, the whole lot. So they're just dumping it all. So that's why the price doesn't go down even further, because there's still a lot of people holding that price up, which are just hardcore kind of Bitcoiners. But there's still a lot of froth in the top of the price, which are just people that are just in it for the gains. So they need to get washed out. They need to lose their Bitcoin, and then the price will go up, and then they can buy back in at 100K.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you buy in when you deserve. And I think the reason why I wanted to just bring this into topic, because it is very topical at the moment with it being at a dip. And obviously everyone loves listening to pods when we're at the highest. But we've always said Bitcoin is the Titanic. Well, it's the little boat off the back of the Titanic, and you know what's happening. And unfortunately, all the sort of things that we've talked about previously, like 6 months ago, were quite outrageous, about like freedoms, about wars. It's all happening, man, and it's super quick. So we've expected volatility. We've always said it's going to be a rough ride, but it's all fun and games saying it. It's when you're in the on the way down to a bottom, like it is a rough ride, and it's hard to remember and to remind yourself that it is, which is why it's important just to talk these things for others to gain a bit of support from, because it is scary. And even though we've both been in it, it does hurt when you see your net wealth disintegrate in front of you, and it is hard, but
Yeah.
you know that it will be turned around, and all the ducks are lining up. It just takes time for people to actually get on board. And like you can say, just look around yourselves in your circles. People are jumping on and starting their journeys when they wouldn't even listen to it a couple of years ago. So it's really good. It's really good, and I'm glad that they're getting in now and not waiting till it's the norm. I still genuinely think we are early adopter stage, probably the back end of it, but we're definitely early adopter stage where the volatility is going to, and there's a lot of money there to be. Well, you'll be an early one. You'll be in a good position in the future, wouldn't you?
Yeah. The way I'd look at it for everyone is just, obviously, I was in Bitcoin relatively early, but then when I left my job, I did sell a chunk of it to give myself some cash to survive. And looking back now, I sold far too much. It probably actually proved that my conviction in Bitcoin was nowhere near as strong as it is now, because I pretty much, up until recent weeks, was 99.9% in Bitcoin. Whereas back then I was probably more like 70. But that ended up being the best thing I could have done, because I went off and traveled the world for a couple of years. And then 2020 hit with the COVID dip. And obviously at that point, the fact that I analyzed data and know what was going on, I realized this COVID thing is not dangerous whatsoever. The world is not about to end. Not everyone's not going to die. So when the stock market dipped, Bitcoin also dipped down to very close to 2016 prices. And I still had a stack of cash left over from my traveling. I just went all in at that point. And I bought a shit ton of Bitcoin, and it made up for my mistake that I'd made at the beginning of 2018 when I sold some. And admittedly, that was kind of got lucky again on that one, where it's a bit of a high. Is the end of the bull market. We just come off the big top, but I just had a life event again where I wanted to leave my job. I wanted to go traveling. So I sold a load, went off, kind of came back, and then realized the world was going to shit, and this, the fiat and the governments were going tyrannical on their power trips. Saw Bitcoin go to this all-time low that I'd never seen, very close to 2016, and just went, well, that's going to come back. So I bought a shit ton, and then you fast forward a year or two, and it's at 70k. I think it went down to 2.5 and went to 70k in the space of 12 months. So you do the maths on it, but it's a 20x, a 20 or 30x. It's insane. So what I would say to people right now is we're probably going to go through the same thing. And we're going to go on to the topic of World War III now. But the topic is really, in your mind, if you think the whole world is going to get blown up with nukes, then yeah, you shouldn't be spending your money on Bitcoin, really. You probably should be spending it on digging a hole in the floor. Yeah. Like
lead lining it.
Yeah. Getting food, learning how to grow food. So I'm guessing nearly no one is doing that, because everyone thinks war is something that happens somewhere else. You don't need to prep for it yourself.
It's so true.
Yeah, they'll go on Twitter and Facebook all day going, "Our thoughts and prayers with fucking Ukraine," and then switch on Love Island. Like, shut up, you virtue signaling cunt! Like, just what a prick! Like, I would do something about it or shut the fuck up. And so
you just triggered yourself there.
What's that?
You just triggered yourself.
No, it's this fucking virtue signalers that trigger me. It's always the same people that got there. They think like putting their pronouns in their LinkedIn profile and I don't know, and just saying, yeah, thoughts and prayers and putting a Ukraine flag in their Twitter bio means that they're helping the world and they're now freaking Gandhi. No, you're not, mate. You work fucking digging holes and yeah, just no. Like actually doing something. So you should actually do something and actually prep. And so skipping to the end, like I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think we're going to get blown up by nukes. I think this is just yet another psyops where the government are trying to distract away from the COVID disaster. I think the truckers triggered it. I think the truckers did so well in Canada that it was starting to turn so much attention on government, and people were starting to wake up to go, oh, I think they're using this COVID thing as an excuse to profiteer and bring in controls. So they needed to create yet another distraction. I've talked about it on the other podcast numerous times. I said it's either going to be climate change or war, and they picked war. So this is the show that's happening right now. The sad thing is, I just caveat it with, it is a show. I do believe it's made up, and all the conflict between Britain and America, or Europe and America, against Russia and China, I don't believe it is real. I do believe it's relatively fake. But what is not fake are the bullets and the bombs going into Ukraine and probably going to go into Taiwan. They are completely real. Innocent people will get blown up and will die. And this is how disgusting our governments are, and how disgusting the fiat system is. And it's why people like me are so passionate about trying to bring it down and get onto a Bitcoin standard, so these people can't afford to do this mass murder. And yeah, so that's my take on World War III so far.
No, it's it's interesting, because I've always noticed, like, when something like the mandate for the NHS came out, the bit of the Downing Street parties was also discussed, which took all the headlines. And then there was another time when something else happened in Downing Street, and then a terrorist something happened. And since the pandemic, the one benefit to pandemics, terrorism disappeared. There wasn't one terrorist act, was there? But before that, was pretty much a high alert for terrorism.
And the flu. The flu disappeared as well, weirdly.
But now it's interesting, because COVID has gone away now. We're not worried about it now. Nothing's been discussed about COVID and the numbers. I haven't heard a number report today, because they're not testing, are they? They're stopping free testing. But the war's now happened, and obviously now, rightly so, it's a world war, as it could well be World War III. So it's getting discussed all over the place. But your take on it is interesting. It's a sideshow, Bob, isn't it?
Yes, WWE. Let me just like wind it back, right? Remove all the emotion and just go, right, let's just go. Like let's just, I don't even know some of the inner politics of what it is. There's something about NATO, Ukraine wanting to be in NATO, Russia don't want them to be in NATO, whatever, right? That's the official line. But let's just take a look at it and go, right, Russia and China are the two countries apparently that have launched wars on these small defenseless countries, Ukraine and Taiwan. So obviously now Europe and America have a question to be answered, which is, what do you do? So at the moment, what they have been doing is coming out, abusing the two leaders, calling them essentially terrorists, warmongers, and they're bringing in massive financial sanctions against their countries and some of their key people to essentially shut off their banking, which, just as we know, you shut off someone's banking, you pretty much chop them at the knees. You don't really exist in the modern world if you can't do banking. However, that's just global banking. So how much Russia and China really give a shit about that, who knows? They're kind of their own countries and own economies. But let's just assume it really hurts them, because they're saying it does, right? So let's assume it does. Let's just go into the game theory of what you would do if you're Russia or China now. Right now, Russia are responsible for 40% of the natural gas that goes into Europe. China are responsible for over 50% of the exports that, well, their exports come to Europe. 50% of the goods that are in Europe and America come from China. So if I'm Putin, or I think it's Xi Jinping or something like that in China, and I've actually genuinely been hurt by these things, and obviously as those guys, you're launching these attacks through decent means in your mind, otherwise you wouldn't have done it. You feel like you've been wronged, you're attacking a country because you think that's justified. These other nations have then stepped up and gone, oh, we don't like that, we're going to sanction you and really hurt you. If I'm Putin, gas off. If I'm China, all exports, even my country, off. In the matter of weeks, Europe would be Mad Max. We would have no products on our shelves. We'd have no gas and electricity, which obviously is the power to cook our food, to heat our homes. It's still winter right now. It would be absolute chaos. So when I look at it and just go, you can't do this. And obviously the fact that China and Russia are the bad guys, this isn't new news. Like, how long have these guys been the bad guys for? Yet we depend on them so much for our manufacturing and for our natural resources for energy, that it's either mass incompetence that you've let the two baddies of the world completely control you, because they can do whatever they want. And if you ever tell them off, they can punish you much harder, because they don't rely on us for stuff. Like China doesn't need the rest of the world. They can just shut off their stuff. They won't make as much money, but they don't cease to function.
Just print more.
Well, yeah, but obviously you get hyperinflation. They want other people's money. They want to sell their goods and collect taxes and all that type of stuff. Same with Russia. They don't want to switch the pipes off, because then they lose a load of money from selling that natural stuff. But if you're in a war situation, what do? You switch them off. So because that isn't even mentioned in any of the stories I'm reading, I'm just going, you're not being authentic again. I don't fucking believe you. I don't think that we can say anything to Putin. I don't think the insults he's getting, I think they're just laughing about it behind the scenes and going, I wonder if they're buying this one. Because I think they're all just having a little party in the background, which, because in essence, as we know over the history of the fiat system, war is the most profitable thing to do for any government. They get the license to print infinite money. They send it off to the same third-party contractors, which are all their mates.
Same ones that own Pharma.
Yeah, they're all linked. The same guys own Big Pharma, and
they've all lost their shares, haven't they? Their share price has crushed recently, isn't it, Pharma?
Yeah, well, you know why? Because they were transitioning into the war. So all the guys in the know knew that the vax mandates were going, and no one gave a shit about COVID anymore. So they dumped their pharma stock and got into military stock.
Wow.
You can see it. It's all there. So that was almost the trigger. It's one of the things. Once I saw like Pfizer and Moderna going down in price by like 50%, I'm like, oh, right. That doesn't happen unless the big boys have sold. So the big boys have sold. What do they know? We're moving on to the next thing, aren't we? And then you look where the money's gone, and oh, look, they're buying up oil and gas stocks. Oh, what a fucking surprise. And now they perform really well. You fucking corrupt motherfuckers, you know? So yeah, I don't believe it. It's just, they're just going to profiteer off it. And unfortunately, what's really sad is just what happened in Afghanistan. Okay, millions of people died there. They stole the natural resources from the country. That's another thing with Ukraine, right? Just to throw it out there, there's a load of natural resources that sit in Ukraine. So often these countries that need defending, it's just, they have a very common thing. They all have a shit ton of natural resources. And yeah, and America always want to come in and save the day. And it tends to be that when they leave, they tend to leave the countries devastated. The economy's crushed. Democracy supposedly has been put in, hasn't, just as we saw with Afghanistan, where the ISIS was in the government building 15 minutes after they left, literally taking selfies. 20 years of war, it lasted 15 minutes. And yeah, and all the natural resources are gone. And all the war contractors got paid, and America come back going, mission accomplished. And I hope I'm wrong. And weirdly, it's a weird one to hope that actually Putin is a dictator and he is just being a rampant warlord, because that's actually the better outcome in a weird way. To actually think they're all colluding and they're going to kill a load of people in Ukraine to prove that this is real, just so they can start a war that they can profit off. That's a super sad world, isn't it? But my money is on that is the outcome right now.
That's horrible, isn't it? And then, you know, when you're saying about who comes to the rescue is like America, I was just thinking, it reminds me when you think of America and Britain's sort of relationship, you can remember Prison Break with Teabag. He'd walk around with his little pocket out, with his little pocket out, and then Britain are like the little boy holding onto the pocket. That's what we are, aren't we? We just get, because I can't know if it was you or someone else on Twitter today was saying that the Air Force are out and you can see them on the plane.
That was me.
Was it you? Was it? Yeah, I knew I'd seen it somewhere.
You can see it. Yeah, you can see the US fighter jets going towards Ukraine and Russia, and then just down from it, you can see EasyJet on the way to Benidorm, and it's like, yeah, these US fighter jets with the worth of $3 billion each or something, and they're on flighttracker.com. Come on, like, if I can find the fighter jet, like, why aren't they number one? Like,
shooting them down. They
shouldn't be on there. Like I was getting text, like people were watching it live at work going, oh my God, I'm watching World War III live. It's like watching Call of Duty. I'm like, do you really think this is how wars start. Like, this is supposedly the best tech in the world with the highest surveillance systems in like anti-radar. And you think you're on flighttracker.com watching the fighter jets fly into Russia. They're going to get shot down instantly. If you can see them, Putin can definitely see them. Like, they're literally doing this to advertise. They want you to screenshot the US fighter jets because Russia know they're coming. They're going to let them fly around a bit and then they're going to fly off. And they want you to screenshot it to prove, look, the war is real, because otherwise, why are the US sending fighter jets in? Like, no, if the war was real,
it's so true, isn't it?
You wouldn't know the fighter jets. You'd just see the devastation, wouldn't you? Biden would announce tomorrow in a press conference, we've destroyed Moscow. Putin's being arrested. We bombed him last night. That'd be the first you heard of it. You wouldn't see it on Flight Tracker on the way. Like,
you wouldn't say tomorrow we're going to go and capture Putin, would you?
No, literally you can see the plane. Like, come on.
It's funny though, because actually Biden is apparently in his press conference he was laughing a couple of times in it, and they were like, I always follow Piers Morgan because he's always quite funny, and about how, yeah, exactly. I just like winding him up, or he probably doesn't read what I say, but he was saying it's disgusting. How can he be laughing? And then when you're saying what you're saying, it kind of makes sense because he's just not as good an actor because he's a bit demented.
Yeah, his thing is like with Biden, I wouldn't even assume any level of like he won't know what's going on. Like he probably the dementia pills he took that day made him giggle. he doesn't know. Like you wouldn't risk telling a dementia patient that this is all a scam because he's gonna fucking say it. He would mess up. He probably just shat himself and he's laughing.
Yeah, he just broke wind, didn't he?
He's like, did anyone hear that? I got away with it. You're talking about World War III here. It's not meant to be funny. He's like, but I shat myself. I'll say, like, you get to sniff a girl's hair in a minute. Just chill for a minute.
Welcome to World War III, baby.
Yeah. Also, I think if we don't get cancelled in this episode and get deleted from Spotify, then I might complain to the CEO.
Yeah, that's it. We must have triggered some folk in this. So yeah, the plan for today was to go off piste and talk about a bit more current affairs. We'll be back next time to help you along on your journey a bit more. But I was quite excited for this pod. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it.
Oh man, I reckon even our most hardcore listener at some point was cursing to themselves, calling us names, and I'm taking that as a win.
Yeah, please comment your comments.
Yeah, leave them. There's probably a little round box in the corner of your room, and if you write your complaints and your comments on there, screw them up and put them in there, they'll find their way to us. And I read everyone.
It's been emotional. Anyway, I'm all out of whiskey.
Yeah, I've got a little bit left, so I'll keep it going after the pod.
Sweet. Well, have a good one, bro.
Have fun staying poor.
Have fun staying poor. Laters.